Hello again from Wood and Stuff Outdoors in Suomi, Minnesota. Today we're going to talk about what makes a hazard tree and also a couple of different mitigation methods, how to get rid of hazard trees safely. I'm going to go over a couple of things that I've learned over the years. There's a lot of different techniques that you can use, but hazard trees are by nature hazardous. So I'm going to show you a couple of things here. On the right, we've got this broken off balsam that's broken off about 15 feet up and hanging in that large dying aspen tree. And so that's a hazard just because its proximity to our work area here. Eventually that is going to come down, and I would rather it not fall on somebody. That aspen tree, if you look up the trunk, it's got a lot of growths on it, a lot of fruiting bodies, if you will, fungus on the stem. That tells me that the center of that tree is rotten. Every time I see those fungal growths, that tells me that center on those aspen trees will always be rotten 100% of the time. Couple large dying limbs on that aspen, and also what makes those two a hazard tree by definition is, for it to be a hazard, it has to have a target. So you could have it just in the middle of nowhere in your woods or whatever. Is it a hazard tree? Not really. If it's never going to hit you, it's not a hazard. But here, this is one of our main work areas in the yard, where we set up the sawmill and do all kinds of stuff. So I want to get those taken care of, and I'm going to show you, starting with the balsam. My hope is, if you look where it's hung up in that aspen tree, my hope is it's not hung up too terribly bad, and it's putting back pressure on that stem that's standing upright. I can face cut that stem that way toward the road and just peel it all out of there all at once. I have to be careful working under it so that if it breaks off while I'm under it working, that it doesn't come down and land on me. So I have to be paying extra attention to that. Assuming that comes out of there, great, then we'll deal with the aspen separately. If it stays hung up in there, what we'll do is we'll just, since that'll be cut off the stem, then it'll be released and we can fell that aspen right through here with that still hung up in it. So without further ado, let's take that balsam tree. Okay, so here I am at the trunk of the balsam tree. I got to be working right underneath this break right here. My face cut will be on this side of the tree, my back cut on this side. I have to kind of look up while I'm making the cut so that this doesn't drop out on me and pound me into the ground like a nail. So you'll notice that I'm looking up constantly too as we work. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give this thing a couple of whacks with the axe just to see if it's really loose. If it's that loose and it starts moving or falling, I don't want to be under it. So let's see what happens. Well, it seems fairly secure, so I think we're good to work. see what I did there? I made the notch really, really deep to kind of shift that tree's center of gravity and try to force it into that direction there. It doesn't leave me a ton of room to leave wedges, but you can see my face is exactly in line with that break and the way that tree wants to push back. If I had it kind of offset, you'd be fighting competing angles. So that's got to be perfectly in line with all that, the physics of that want to push that way. Open face notch, big wide open notch, so that tree can collapse quite a long ways before that hinge breaks. So give yourself the most control possible. Now I'm going to do the back cut here. I'm going to give a warning shout so that if anyone's around here walking up on me, they know what's going on and I don't surprise somebody. We'll see if it comes out of there. I don't think it will, but we're going to try. Back cut! Tree forward! Okay, so we saw that tree start to commit a little bit here. I've got a little bit of room to set a wedge. I'm going to do it carefully and be paying really close attention to it as I work. So we're going to see if a wedge will finish it off here. Yep, so our wedges are bottomed out against the hinge right now. It doesn't want to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the off side of this hinge, this side right here, so that when I put a face cut and back cut in that tree, it'll release on this side and the whole thing should flop over this way. So I'm going to pull these wedges out because I'm going to probably need them for that one. Balsam released from the stump. And now we're going to look at the defect in this tree. Let's start with this frost crack right here. This is something that's split open in the winter time in really cold temperatures. It allows water to get in there and freeze and thaw and expand and contract. And we got probably carpenter ant galleries in there. And yeah, there's still a little bit of live material in the canopy, meaning that there's a little bit of good cambium yet in this tree, allowing nutrients to get up and down, but mostly the tree's pretty dead. Let's come around this side here. I don't really want to be under that, but you kind of look straight up, you see all the conchs and fungal growths and stuff. Again, another indicator that it's rotten all the way up to the top. Now I want to see what kind of holding wood I'm dealing with in there. So I'm going to actually bore into the tree from the direction of the face cut. Well, I'll probably do it from the back because I don't want to be under that. But I'll take my saw and I'll bore straight in. And what kind of chips come out of that tree tells me what condition the interior of the tree is in. And it tells me what condition my holding wood is going to be in too. So it just helps me understand a little bit more the physics of the tree. So to read this tree, like how do I know that it's going to go where I want it to go? Well, two things. I have to determine the lean of the tree, and how I do that is come up to the tree. I kind of look it up and down. It's called bellying up the tree. You belly up the tree. Now it's got a little bit of back lean coming this way, but all the limb loading is that way. Coming on this side, I can see that, yeah. Mostly it wants to come, the trunk of the tree wants to come this way, but you got to counteract that limb loading and that cantilevered weight way out over toward the driveway. That is going to offset the weight of the trunk. If the trunk wants to go this way, but that cantilevered weight wants to pull it that way, that works in our favor. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to walk this tree out at perpendicular angles. So I'm going to walk straight back from the direction of where I want it to go. So I'm going to come back here. And this tells me better picture than just bellying up the tree. I can see if it's got lean left or right. And I can see, it's still got lean to the left. That's a little more evident now. And then I got to see if it's leaning frontwards or backwards. So toward me or away from me. I can't tell from this angle. So I got to go out and walk perpendicular to the tree. It's like when I bellied up the tree, it tells me that the bowl lean is a little bit away from the driveway, just a couple of degrees. So we're going to take that into consideration, and we're going to take into consideration the angle of the limbs, because I don't want them to get tied into the white pine on the right over there. So I'm going to aim it a little more for this red pine, and we're going to shoot the gap in between the two. So yeah, my first step will be to bore in and see what we got, and then put a face cut and back cut and a couple wedges and see what happens. Okay, so what these chips tell me is the outer part of the tree was good and solid. You had these curly Q sort of chips. And then as I got into the tree, it turned more into this dust, this powder here. That just tells me that the center of the tree is rotten. Not necessarily hollow like maybe I thought it was, but at least I'll have good holding wood on the outside of the tree. The inside's garbage, but the outside should be decent. You do a vertical bore through there because that won't compromise your holding wood, your hinge wood through the middle. Whereas if you did a horizontal bore, you will have swept out a good piece of your holding wood, which In this scenario, probably didn't matter that much anyway, since the center's rotten anyhow, but that's how you do it, is make a vertical slot right where you want to put that face cut, that height that you want to put the face cut, because if you put it up here or down here, trees compartmentalize their rot pretty well, and up here it might be rotten or solid. Up here it might be solid, but down here just a foot it might be totally rotten, and you really only need to know if it's rotten where you're going to put your face cut. So that's why I put it where I put it. And I see if I came out the other end or not. No, oh yeah, I did. Yeah, it went all the way through. And I can look through that slot, and yeah, it's not hollow, but it's definitely soft in the middle. So, all right, so face cut, we'll line it up with right through there. And again, I gotta be on the lookout so that balsam tree doesn't break out on me, but I think it's hung up there pretty good, so not too terribly worried about it from this far away. All right, let's go. Let's do it. Okay, so you can see, like I said, it was pretty rotten in the middle. You can push it down with your finger. That tells you it's pretty rotten. It's like a sponge. So I got decent holding wood around the edge, which is kind of what I figured even before I bored into it. So this part and this part is what's gonna control the direction of fall. This does nothing. I could bore through this and eat all that out and whatever. It isn't gonna matter. In fact, I still might bore through it just so I have room to put a wedge in without bottoming it out against the hinge. You leave a nice, again, that open face notch allows for control all the way down. It allows to close that gap before the hinge breaks off. And nice even cut through the center, no bypass cuts, no nothing, just a real nice clean corner in there. So okay, so again, all that does is it allows me room from the back to put wedges through, and the wedges can stick through the face rather than bottoming out against the back side of the hinge. Set a wedge in, just kind of to hold it. Maybe not that one, this one. And we're not going to drive it home. We're just going to get it seated, firmly or snugly. But we don't want to preload that tension either. We don't want to make that tree jump off the stump. That's just kind of there to hold it in case it did sit back on me. So now we'll make our second cut here, which is going to be this quarter. We're going to take this quarter out here, and then we'll put another wedge in, and then we'll come around the other side and take the other quarter out. And this is how we do it. All right, so if I needed to, where I had bored through that, so you see where this is right here, I could have driven that wedge further and got more lifting power, more lifting momentum or height with this. Didn't need to because it already had all of its weight going that way, or at least all that cantilevered weight anyhow. Good corners, they're well intact, both sides. I could have been a little bit more even on this one, but again, this wasn't actually holding wood anyway, it was rotten. So, again, a deep face, shift that center of gravity as much as I can in my favor. Bring that face even right up to halfway, or this case even just a little bit beyond halfway. Shifts all that weight over to where I want it to go. Yeah, and then what I did after this wedge was set, you saw I took this quarter out, set my wedge on this side, came around. This was all still good holding wood. This tree wasn't going anywhere until I told it to go somewhere. And at which point, you know, took this out, and I didn't even have to drive wedges, again, because I read the tree the right way the first time. And you hope you don't misread something, but wedges they really overcome for a lot if you do make a mistake. So yeah, and now the hard part with the cleanup. So yay us.